Welcome to the gripping story of Sam Giancana, the Chicago mob boss who not only ruled the underworld, but also collaborated with the CIA. Was he the man who helped elect JFK, and did his Mafia ties lead to the president's assassination? From his brutal rise in the Chicago outfit to his alleged involvement in Castro's assassination attempts, Giancana's life was anything but ordinary. Throughout the 20th century, the influence of organized crime in the United States extended far beyond street-level operations. Figures like Santo Trafficante Jr., suspected of a plot to poison Fidel Castro, and Lucky Luciano, who assisted the U.S. military during World War II using his criminal network at the docks, showed just how far-reaching these mobsters' power could be. However, Sam Giancana stands out not only for his violent rise in the Chicago outfit, but for his alleged connections to some of the most significant political events in American history. Born into a Sicilian immigrant family in Chicago on June 15, 1908, Giancana grew up in an unforgiving environment that shaped his ruthless future. His early life in Chicago's Little Italy neighborhood, known as the Patch, was marked by extreme hardship and brutality. His father, Antonio, regularly chained a young Sam to a tree in their yard and whipped him with a razor strap for disobedience, a punishment that left deep emotional scars. By the time he was just 6 years old, Sam had already experienced the harshness of life. His mother's death during his early childhood only compounded the situation, leaving him vulnerable and angry. As he grew, Giancana's defiance became more than a personal rebellion, it set him on a criminal path. By the age of 10, he was sent to a reform school, unable to conform to the rules of society or his father's strict household. His father remarried, and with new half-siblings filling their home, Giancana found himself increasingly alienated. He sought belonging elsewhere, in the streets, where he joined a gang that would define his rise in the criminal underworld, the 42 Gang. The 42 Gang, made up predominantly of Italian youths, ruled Chicago's West Side in the 1920s and 1930s. Their crimes ranged from car theft and bootlegging during Prohibition to violent robberies and murder. By the age of 17, Giancana had been arrested for auto theft, and by 20, he had already been jailed multiple times. Though he was suspected of being involved in at least 3 murders, he was never convicted. His increasing notoriety earned him a reputation among his peers, and soon, his leadership skills in the gang became evident. One of the key turning points in Giancana's life came when he caught the attention of Al Capone. The 42 Gang's operations had become so extensive that even Chicago's most powerful crime boss noticed their activities. As fellow gangster Tony Montana recounted to the Los Angeles Times in 2014, Giancana was involved in various illegal ventures, including robberies and extortion schemes, with partners like Milwaukee Phil and the English Brothers. Their shakedowns and criminal exploits were so successful that Capone himself saw potential in young Giancana. Capone's endorsement set Giancana on a fast track to the upper echelons of organized crime in Chicago. Under the mentorship of Capone, Giancana learned the ropes of the broader criminal syndicate and expanded his influence, setting the stage for his eventual rise as the leader of the Chicago outfit. However, Giancana's power and reach would soon extend far beyond the borders of Chicago and the underworld. As Giancana climbed the ranks, his connections began to merge with the political and intelligence spheres. His involvement in a CIA-backed plot to assassinate Cuban leader Fidel Castro marked a significant, if secret, chapter of his life. This covert operation, which allegedly included plans to poison Castro using Mafia resources, showed how the government was willing to collaborate with the criminal underworld for its political objectives. However, it wasn't just his shadowy dealings with the CIA that made Giancana a key player in national affairs. His connections to the Kennedy family, specifically John F. Kennedy, fueled decades of speculation about his role in one of the most dramatic moments in American history. Giancana is believed to have played a crucial role in helping JFK win the 1960 presidential election by manipulating the vote in key states, including Illinois. Beyond political alliances, rumors swirled that Giancana and Kennedy shared more than just a professional connection, they also shared romantic interests. Women like Judith Exner, Phyllis McGuire, and even Marilyn Monroe were said to have been romantically involved with both men. These intertwined relationships blurred the lines between organized crime, Hollywood glamour, and political power, ultimately adding fuel to the conspiracy theories surrounding JFK's assassination. After spending his early years with the 42 Gang, Sam Giancana transitioned from street-level crime to becoming a key player in Al Capone's notorious alcohol smuggling operation during Prohibition. He started as a driver, but this role positioned him alongside some of the most dangerous and influential figures in the Chicago outfit. Giancana's work as a driver often involved more than just chauffeuring. He played an active role in some of the era's most infamous criminal operations. He frequently drove for the likes of John Machine Gun McGurn and Tony Big Tuna Accardo, two of Capone's closest associates. These mobsters, known for their ruthlessness, were reportedly key figures behind the bloody St. Valentine's Day massacre of 1929, where 7 members of a rival gang were gunned down in one of the most notorious gangland killings in American history. Though he became entrenched in the outfit's operations, Giancana managed to avoid being drafted into World War II. A selective service psychologist labeled him a constitutional psychopath, which exempted him from military duty. However, Giancana found his own way to profit from the war effort, albeit illegally. He orchestrated a lucrative scheme producing counterfeit ration stamps, which were in high demand during the wartime shortage. By selling these fake stamps at exorbitant prices, Giancana continued to build his wealth and influence, even during a global conflict. During the early 1940s, Giancana's criminal activities landed him back in prison. While incarcerated, he met Eddie Jones, an African-American man who had gained immense respect within the prison community for his control over the policy rackets in Chicago's African-American neighborhoods. These policy rackets, as described in a 2013 Chicago Tribune article, functioned like underground lotteries for the working-class population, offering a tantalizing chance at wealth to those struggling to make ends meet. Giancana, always on the lookout for new opportunities, quickly befriended Jones. Intrigued by the immense profits these rackets generated, tens of millions of dollars each year, Giancana set his sights on controlling them. When he was released from prison in 1942, he partnered with his old associate Tony Accardo to muscle in on the rackets. What followed was a campaign of intimidation, violence, and terror against Chicago's South Side African-American community. One of Giancana's boldest moves came in 1946, when he orchestrated the kidnapping of his former ally, Eddie Jones. In broad daylight, Giancana and his crew abducted Jones right in front of his wife and secretary. A high-speed chase ensued, with Giancana's men exchanging gunfire with police officers, even wounding one of them. Jones and his brother eventually agreed to surrender control of their lucrative racket in exchange for a ransom of $100,000, leaving Giancana and his partner, Teddy Rowe, as the primary operators. However, Teddy Rowe, unlike Jones, refused to back down from Giancana's relentless pressure. Despite numerous threats and an attempted kidnapping that narrowly failed, Rowe stood his ground against the Chicago outfit. This defiance made him a marked man. In 1952, after years of tension, Giancana ordered Rowe's assassination. The murder of Rowe eliminated the last significant obstacle in Giancana's quest for domination over Chicago's policy rackets. By the mid-1950s, Giancana had solidified his position as one of the most powerful mobsters in Chicago. With Al Capone's death in 1947 and Tony Accardo stepping back from the day-to-day operations, Giancana assumed full control of the Chicago outfit. His rise to the top was now complete, cementing his legacy as one of the most formidable and feared crime bosses of his era. Though Sam Giancana had settled down into married life and fathered 3 daughters, he was far from the family man image one might expect. Despite his commitments at home, Giancana became infamous for his numerous affairs and womanizing ways. In 1954, tragedy struck when his wife passed away, leaving Giancana a widower with the responsibility of raising their children alone. Despite this, he never remarried, but his string of romantic escapades only grew in number. He formed relationships with a series of lovers, including several high-profile women, cementing his reputation as a notorious womanizer. One of the most pivotal figures in Giancana's personal life was Frank Sinatra, the legendary singer with deep connections to both the mob and Hollywood elite. It was through Sinatra's introduction, along with his extramarital lover Judith Exner, that Giancana found himself crossing paths with a man who would change the course of American history, John F. Kennedy Jr. The unlikely friendship between the mobster and the future U.S. president may have been sparked by their mutual connection to Exner, but it blossomed into a bond that would have profound political and criminal implications. Exner herself played a key role in orchestrating the meeting between Giancana and JFK. In a revealing 1988 interview with People magazine, she detailed a clandestine encounter that she had arranged. She recalled how the two men met in private, just before JFK was due to attend a political function. It was a short meeting early in the evening, Exner recounted. Sam arrived first, and then Jack. Jack greeted me warmly, putting his arms around me and apologizing that he couldn't stay longer. He was in town to speak at a Democratic dinner. Afterward, he went over and shook Sam's hand, calling him Jack, not Mr. President. According to Exner, when she offered to leave to give the two men privacy, JFK insisted she stay, likely to avoid suspicion. She retreated to the bathroom, sitting quietly on the edge of the tub, while the mobster and the president held their secretive conversation. The intersection of Giancana's world and JFK's life wasn't merely coincidental. Many believe it was orchestrated as part of a larger effort by the Chicago outfit and other organized crime families to help JFK win the 1960 presidential election. These criminal networks reportedly manipulated voting outcomes in key states, tipping the scales in Kennedy's favor. One of Giancana's longtime lovers, singer Phyllis McGuire, later disclosed in interviews that the relationship between Giancana and Kennedy extended far beyond a political alliance. It included shared lovers and wild affairs. As McGuire told the Sun-Sentinel, the two men allegedly both slept with one of Hollywood's biggest stars at the time, Marilyn Monroe. Judith Exner, who was intimately involved with both JFK and Giancana, revealed yet another shocking twist. In the 1970s, when Senate reports surfaced about covert assassination plots, Exner had a startling realization. "It finally dawned on me," she said, "that I was probably helping Jack orchestrate the attempted assassination of Fidel Castro with the Mafia's help." The chilling connection between organized crime, the CIA, and Kennedy's administration suggested that Exner had unknowingly facilitated one of the U.S. government's most infamous covert operations. But the most tantalizing and tragic piece of the puzzle is the role that Sam Giancana may have played in the mysterious death of Marilyn Monroe. The Hollywood starlet's sudden death in 1962 has long been the subject of speculation, with many pointing to her romantic entanglements with both John and Robert Kennedy as a potential motive for foul play. According to Monroe's hairstylist, the last time she was seen alive was with Giancana at the Calneva Lodge in Lake Tahoe, a hotel and casino notorious for its mafia connections. "The night before she died, the last time I saw her was at Lake Tahoe with Sam Giancana, who was the head of the Mafia," the stylist confided to his son in a recording. Monroe's impending revelations about her affairs with the Kennedys may have sealed her fate. At the time of her death, rumors swirled that she had been planning to go public with the details of her relationships with both John and Robert Kennedy. Her hairstylist, reflecting on the situation years later, offered a chilling theory. "I really think the FBI did it," he said, implying that Monroe's ties to both the Kennedy brothers and the mob made her a liability too dangerous to leave alive. Sam Giancana's reputation for orchestrating murders and his close connections with the Kennedy family became an invaluable asset to the United States government during the tumultuous 1960s. At this time, the CIA was heavily invested in covert operations aimed at bringing down Cuban leader Fidel Castro, whose communist regime had become a thorn in America's side. The agency's tactics were often bizarre, ranging from exploding cigars to poison-laced wetsuits, but one of their more audacious strategies involved enlisting the Mafia, sworn enemies of the U.S. government, to do their dirty work. Giancana's personal interest in Castro's downfall made him an eager participant in the mission. The dictator's rise to power had led to the closure of Cuba's luxurious casinos, which had been a cash cow for mobsters like Giancana. By eliminating Castro, Giancana hoped to reopen these lucrative enterprises and reassert his dominance in the Cuban gambling market, allowing him to expand his criminal empire further into Latin America. Declassified CIA documents from August 1960 to February 1963 shed light on the intricate network of alliances forged between the government and organized crime during this time. One of the key figures in this secretive collaboration was Robert Monroe, a private investigator and frequent CIA collaborator. Monroe was tasked with reaching out to the underworld, and his first point of contact was Johnny Rosselli, a smooth-talking mobster with deep connections to the criminal underworld. It was Rosselli who eventually introduced Monroe to Sam Gold, a mysterious figure who turned out to be none other than Sam Giancana himself. While rumors persist that the CIA offered Giancana a hefty sum, reportedly hundreds of thousands of dollars, for his participation in the operation, Giancana is said to have turned down the money. According to the accounts, he claimed that he was simply fulfilling his patriotic duty, driven by a desire to help his country. However, Giancana's motivations were likely far more self-serving. He probably hoped that in exchange for aiding the assassination of Castro, the newly elected President John F. Kennedy would pressure his brother, Robert Kennedy, who would soon become Attorney General, to ease off the aggressive federal investigations into organized crime. Giancana had good reason to be optimistic. In 1962, Robert Kennedy did temporarily halt his investigations into Giancana and his associates, though he was reportedly furious when he learned that the CIA had been working with the Mafia without his approval. Despite the temporary reprieve, the mob's attempts to assassinate Castro were a series of spectacular failures. Alongside Giancana, Rosselli and other mobsters concocted several creative yet unsuccessful plots to eliminate the Cuban leader. One of their most notable collaborators was Miami mob boss Santo Traficante, Jr., who connected them with a man who had access to Castro's inner circle, specifically his kitchens. This man was tasked with poisoning Castro's food, but despite their best efforts, the poison failed to work, leaving Castro unharmed. In another attempt, the mobsters tried to poison the dictator using a substance hidden in a pencil, but once again, the plot failed to come to fruition. These repeated failures left Giancana and his criminal colleagues increasingly frustrated and desperate for results. As the 1960s progressed, Giancana's growing resentment toward Robert Kennedy's relentless crackdown on organized crime became more pronounced. Some accounts even suggest that Giancana, along with other crime bosses, played a role in orchestrating John F. Kennedy's assassination in 1963 as a form of revenge for RFK's dogged pursuit of the mob. While this theory remains a subject of debate among historians and conspiracy theorists, the bitter relationship between the Kennedys and the mob is undeniable. By the mid-1960s, Sam Giancana's once powerful reign over the Chicago outfit began to unravel. In 1965, Giancana was jailed after he refused to testify before the Senate about organized crime, invoking the Mafia's sacred code of silence known as omerta. This deeply ingrained practice required members of the mob to remain tight-lipped about their criminal dealings, even when faced with legal pressures. Giancana's adherence to this code kept him out of further legal trouble at the time, but it ultimately cost him dearly within the criminal organization itself. In 1967, despite his loyalty, Giancana's former comrades in the Chicago outfit decided it was time to remove him from power. The exact reasons for his ousting remain murky, but internal tensions and distrust likely played a significant role. Stripped of his influence and connections, Giancana found himself increasingly vulnerable. Adding to his troubles, the FBI was aggressively investigating his role in the failed assassination plots against Cuban leader Fidel Castro, which had been orchestrated with the CIA's covert backing. Fearing both law enforcement and potential retribution from his former associates, Giancana chose to flee the country. He initially sought refuge in Mexico and later in Argentina, effectively entering a self-imposed exile. For several years, Giancana remained hidden abroad, living a quieter life far from the mob wars and political intrigue of the United States. But in 1974, for reasons still debated, Giancana made the fateful decision to return to the U.S. Some believe he had grown tired of life on the run, while others suggest he sought to regain some semblance of control over his criminal empire. Whatever his motives, Giancana's return was marked by increasing scrutiny from both the FBI and government officials. By this time, details of the CIA's clandestine efforts to assassinate Castro had begun to emerge publicly, sparking outrage and curiosity. In 1975, the U.S. Senate convened official hearings to investigate the government's use of underworld figures in its assassination attempts against foreign leaders. Giancana, along with fellow mobster Johnny Rosselli, was summoned as a key witness. The public revelation that the CIA had partnered with the Mafia to target Castro was a bombshell, casting a shadow over both the government and organized crime. The Senate wanted answers, and Giancana was expected to provide them. On the evening of June 19, 1975, Sam Giancana was in the basement kitchen of his Oak Park, Illinois, home, preparing a meal of sausage and peppers. What should have been an ordinary night turned fatal when an unknown individual entered the room and fatally shot him. Giancana was struck in the head and neck, with the gunman fleeing the scene immediately after the deadly attack. The identity of Giancana's assassin has never been definitively established, although many speculate that the killer was likely a fellow mobster who wanted to ensure that Giancana did not reveal any secrets to the Senate during the upcoming hearings. After all, the Chicago outfit, as well as other organized crime syndicates, had much to lose if Giancana broke omerta and disclosed any incriminating information. While no official suspect has ever been named, various theories continue to circulate regarding who pulled the trigger that night. One person who claims to know the truth is former Chicago mobster Frank Calabrese Jr., but he has vowed to take the secret to the grave. In an interview with MSN, Calabrese hinted that he is aware of the assassin's identity but remains tight-lipped. Similarly, Chicago Mafia historian John Binder has presented his own theory, suggesting that Giancana's longtime driver, Dominic Butch Blasi, was the one who carried out the hit. Binder noted in an interview with ABC 7 Chicago that Blasi had returned to Giancana's home that night. A car registered to Blasi or his family was seen returning to Giancana's house after everyone else had left. Shortly after, Giancana was found dead on the kitchen floor, Binder explained. However, others have different ideas. Both Sam Giancana's nephew, who shares his name, and a Chicago police officer have pointed the finger at another close associate, Tony the Ant Spilatro. Spilatro, a notorious mob enforcer known for his ruthlessness, had the means and opportunity to carry out the killing, making him a prime suspect in the eyes of some. Despite these conflicting accounts, the truth about who killed Giancana remains elusive, with no conclusive evidence to prove any of the theories beyond a doubt. What is clear is that Giancana's murder was not an isolated incident. The following year, his former criminal partner and closest confidant, Johnny Rosselli, met a similar fate. Rosselli, who had also been summoned to testify before the Senate about the Mafia's connection to CIA plots against Fidel Castro, was found dead, stuffed into a 55-gallon oil drum that had been dumped into the waters near Miami. Like Giancana, Rosselli took many secrets to the grave, leaving behind unanswered questions and fueling further speculation. Yet, the intrigue surrounding Sam Giancana extends far beyond his assassination. To this day, conspiracy theorists and historians alike continue to debate the extent of Giancana's involvement in one of the most significant events in American history, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Rumors and conjecture have persisted for decades, suggesting that Giancana may have played a role in orchestrating the assassination as retribution for the Kennedy administration's crackdown on organized crime, particularly Robert Kennedy's relentless pursuit of the Mafia. Though no concrete proof has ever surfaced, the idea that Giancana had a hand in the president's murder remains a tantalizing piece of the broader puzzle that connects the Mafia, politics, and power in mid-20th century America. Sam Giancana's life ended in the same violent fashion that he had inflicted on so many others. His murder left a trail of mysteries about his role in the mob, his dealings with the CIA, and his possible connection to the assassination of a president. Even in death, Giancana's shadow looms large over some of the darkest chapters in U.S. history.